name is Jeannie Blacker Rosenblum. I left out Lipsey. My name is Jeannie Blacker Lipsey Rosenblum, and I was born January 19th, 1928 in Omaha, Nebraska. I am the daughter of David and Marie Blacker, both of whom were born in Russia. I don't know the shtetl, so we used to just put Minsk and Pinsk down for those grade school cards that you had to fill out. I went to Saunders School in kindergarten and first grade, part of first grade. Then my family moved, and we moved about 10 blocks further on California Street, and I went to Dundee School. And I have a sister, Barbara, who's 20 months younger than I am, and I have a brother, H. Martin Blacker, doctor, neurosurgeon, retired, and he also went to Dundee. We all went to Central. My Jewish background is I started Hebrew school when I was 8 years old at Bethel. And I can't remember some of the things, but I think Harry Mendelson taught us Hebrew at home, sitting in the dining room, I remember, and he used to pace around as you were sitting, reading and struggling in the book. And then Bethel must have started to get their act together, because the Hebrew school was at Herman Cohn's basement, and Judah Wolfson was the teacher. I don't remember how many people were in class then, but I went from there. Then, of course, Bethel was built, and 49th and Farnham. And there when at the dedication of the synagogue, I lit the candles and sang the blessing. And I was, 13 years old, I think. Maybe a little older. And I think Arnie Linsman did something too.
Tell me about your parents, your mom and dad.
My mom and dad, my dad came over from Russia with his dad, Isaac Blacker, and they were going to work to make enough money to bring the rest of the family over. And my dad went to Detroit to live with cousins, and Grandpa Blacker came to Omaha, Nebraska, and his cousin, the Horwiches and the Richards family, they all lived across the street. They lived on, maybe that was a little later that they moved to Burnett Street, the whole family. My grandfather was in the seltzer business, and my dad was 13 when he came over here. My mother was 9, and she lived in Minnelusa. I don't know where they met or how they met, but they ended up working for Bill Lorman, I think, for the newspaper business. North Omaha Booster was one of the things that they did. Dad sold advertising for Bill Norman, and my mom was the bookkeeper. And they used to go fishing at Spirit Lake. My mother caught all the fish, and she would clean all the fish, and my dad just had a ball.
How did the family happen to come to Omaha?
Because I think because his relatives, the Horwich family, and Auntie Davidson, that's what he called her, that was his father's sister is Esther Horwich's, Rose Richards' mother. They were all first cousins, and they had settled here. And he lived with them, or near them, or whatever. And my mom lived in Minnelusa with her family, and wherever they moved around. And My mom worked. My mother, I remember I had a badge, was a probation officer for the juvenile court. And my dad would go with her when she had to call on some of these cases. I think when they were courting, I don't think they were married yet when they did that.
What kind of work did your mother's family do?
I don't know that. My grandfather, I never knew. My mother's father, I never knew. He died young. And I have no idea.
Do you remember your mother's mother very well?
Oh, she was wonderful. Oh, I adored her. I remember her very well. She had the most wonderful personality and the most wonderful, loving manner about her, and was always giving and happy and loved her grandchildren, and we adored her. She was just wonderful. And I luckily knew her when I got married to Stan Lipsey and lived in California for a year. My grandmother was living with one of her children in California because she wasn't that well before she moved to Omaha to live with another child. Then my grandmother, Grandma Maisie, she lived in the Dr. Cheryl here. And she was a fabulous person. She wrote letters, and in her English, it was phonetic, the spelling. I mean, we used to just giggle over her expressions and the way she expressed herself.
And how about the grandparents on your father's side?
My grandpa, they had 8 children, and they all lived on Burdett Street, and they lived a few doors from Babe Lumpkin, the Vietzers, right? And there were a lot of Jewish families on that street, and we used to go there for Seder to Grandma and Grandpa Blacker's, and my father and my grandfather did the whole Haggadah in Hebrew, and we all sat around bored to tears because none of us could read it. There were no vowels, and it was just absolutely awful. But the food was fabulous, and whenever we giggled or made noise, the look from my father would be enough to kill. I mean, we would shut up immediately. And, and then we went to Hebrew school, so we all started, the youngest first I did, and then my brother, asking if you're cautious and the whole thing. And it was wonderful.
Do you remember the changing of the dishes and those things?
Oh, yes. My grandmother changed the dishes, everything. And we had everything. The crane was so bitter. Everything was wonderful, and it lasted. We did the whole Haggadah. My God, we didn't get out of there till 11:30, quarter to 12.
Tell me the names of your mother and father's siblings.
My father was the oldest in his family. Then he had the next was a brother, Harry, who was in the grocery business. And then I'm not sure I'm going to get them all in order now, but there's 8 children in that family. So it's David, Harry, Leo, Maury are the 4 boys. I'm not going to give the exact ages. I'm mixed in. The girls were Libby, Ida, Dodo was her nickname for Dorothy. She's the one who was best friends with Babe Lumpkin. And Dorothy and Francis was in between Francis and Young. That's 4, so that's 8. My mother's family there were 6 children and 2 second marriage children, but they were all like one family. 8  'There was Clara, whom I never met. There was Edna, she was married to a Rosenthal in Council Bluffs. Then there was Uncle Billy was the only boy in that family, Billy Recusin. Then there was Sadie Chernus, that she married Leonard Chernus. There was Ben Abrahamson. I don't know, how many did I count? Did I do that right? Uncle Billy, and then Clara, then Edna. There was, the two youngest were Rose and Lena, then Marie, that's my mom, then that's three, and I've named Clara and what did I say, Clara, and what was the other half-sister name that I said? Oh, Edna. Okay, so that's 3 and 2, that's 5. So I've got 3 more people to come. Uncle Billy. And, oh, I can't not leave anybody out. That wouldn't be nice. Oh, Rose Lavin, who lived in Chicago. And, did you count? Do I have enough? I'm lost. Anyway, there were 8. I don't think I left anyone out.
Now, you must have had a world of cousins.
I did. I was closer with my, well, I did. I had a world of cousins in my mother's side of the family, not in my father's side. My father had there were 3. I had 2 siblings, so he had 3 children. But Libby had no children. She got married late in life, and the man she married had 1 child, not together, and I didn't know her very well. Frances had 2 children. Dodo got married late in life, had no children. Leo was a bachelor. Maury had 1 child. And I think that's it for my dad's family. On the other hand, my mother's family was much more prolific. Abrahamson had 3, I think. And Rose Lavin had 3. And Fanny had 4, I think. I mean, there were just dozens of kids. I didn't see my mother's family as much, but my cousin Harold Abrahamson and I graduated Central together. And Rose had a daughter who was my age, the one who lived in Chicago. Oh, and Chernus, she had 2 children, I didn't say that, and she had 1 daughter who was my age, and she had a son. There were lots of cousins on my mother's side of the family.
In Omaha, did you get together with a lot of family at times?
At times we did, yes.
For holidays?
No, not necessarily for holidays. We went, but my mother would have a family night of all her family, and they would all come, and we'd all see one another. And my father's family, they were scattered. Some lived in Chicago and some were in Los Angeles. There weren't that many around in Omaha.
I'd like to hear about your father's work life. You said that he was selling ads for a newspaper to begin with.
Yes, right. He was a great salesman. And he was very involved in communal activities, starting young. You know, he cared about the community and people, and he established, I think, a great social consciousness in his children. I think he bought the Jewish Press, if I'm not mistaken, for $5,000 in, I think, the year I was born, in 28. The press, he bought it from a man named Nate Green. And it it was just something we always knew, the Jewish press, and that was the office what we would go up to get a ride home from school and so on and so forth. And he would have, his sisters would be different people that worked for him, you know, as a secretary or as a whatever, the family. My father was very, very concerned about his family and taking care of them. So that I think that in my married life, I have the same responsibility because I was the oldest child, as my father was the oldest child. I felt the same way about my brother and sister, caring for them and, you know, making sure they're all right, and I was worried about them and that kind of thing. I just felt as the oldest, I had that responsibility to watch out for my family, my sis and my brother. And my dad got us interested in, I mean, he was a great reader. He had a great library, and he valued education, and he always considered himself an uneducated man because he only went to 2 years of high school, and then he had to quit to go to work. And so he would always say about himself, I'm not an educated man. He was the smartest man I ever in my life knew. He could, if you could ask him something, he'd say, well, go get that book, I think it's on about 85 or whatever, and you could quote it and do it, and so on. And when we had dinner, when I was growing up, we had dinner together every night, and we always had discussions. And when my father would say to you, I don't care if you were in 4th grade or whatever, what did you do in school today? Or how was school today? And if you just said fine, that wasn't good enough. You had to elaborate on what you liked, what you didn't like, who's teacher, and so on and so forth. I mean, he just put you to the task. And it was a wonderful family life. On Sunday nights, we used to bring chicken in and sit around in our tiny little den and listen to Jack Benny and Fred Allen and eat on the floor. And it was something that we just all looked forward to. And we used to write entertainment for each occasion somebody had a birthday or whatever in our own family. And we had fun together. We laughed a lot, we teased a lot. I think my father was a very moral man and tried to teach us the same way. I'll never forget my brother. At that time we had, I don't know what kind of, it was probably the biggest car we ever had. I don't know if it was a Cadillac, I don't know what it was. And he wanted to go, because everybody was gone and he knew how to drive, he wanted to drive it to Central to pick up the kids and, you know, see his friends and blah, blah, blah. Well, my father wouldn't let him. You can't drive up to school in a Cadillac. I mean, how immoral it was, how wrong it was, and on and on and on. And so when my brother went to college, he and my sister were at Missouri at the same time. My brother went to Missouri for 1 year. My sister graduated from there because then Marty transferred to Nebraska. But Marty wanted to drive somewhere with Barbara. And this time he wrote a letter and presented it to him on how moral it was and how right it was. And he got turned down because he hadn't covered something, so then he redid the letter, presented it again, and he got to go. But it was great fun, and we could tease Daddy so much. When he was going to accept the chairmanship of the Philanthropies campaign for the first time, he talked to us at dinner time because he felt that he had to make some kind of a sacrificial type gift to show how important it was, and therefore we were going to miss out on a few things, and he wanted us to understand that, and if we agreed with that, and if that was okay with all of us, we were going to not get some things because we couldn't afford it. And of course we all said yes, and he was a wonderful chairman, and he took it again. I think he was chairman for a couple of years. And then he did bond drive, and he did, I mean, there was always a lesson. He was always teaching us lessons about how to conduct yourself, and it always had something from the Judeo-Christian teachings wrapped up in it. It was very inspirational.
What were weekends like at home when the kids were all there and your parents?
Well, we loved to listen to music, and Marty and we all liked to sing. The kids did, so we would stand around and sing around the piano. My brother played the piano beautifully, and he had perfect pitch, as he would tell all of us, which he really did, but he was sickening. We were all just, God, he was adorable, but we could tease him like crazy. He was the precious boy, 2 girls, then we finally got our boy. And it was great fun. We had great fun. My sister and I dated a lot in high school. And then in the same house, my parents, I think it was when Barbara went to high school, we're only 20 months apart, they fixed up the basement and finished it in Knotty Pine. So our house was where people congregated. And usually it was on a Friday night, and we had I was thinking of Friday nights, remind me, I want to tell you something. Friday night, they would come, we had a side door, and they'd come downstairs the basement, and we'd have a party. We had records and dancing, and it was wonderful, wonderful fun. I would come there, I sang in the Bethel choir, so I would come after services, come home, and when we were in grade school, when we were going to Dundee School, every Friday night they had a dance for the 8th graders. And I was number 1, the oldest in the family, so he kind of set the rules, started with me, because it was a little more lenient with Barbara, and of course with Marty it was entirely, different. But we could not go to the school dances because it was a Friday night. You don't do that on Shabbos. That was tough. That was tough. But he taught us about tolerance and about, Barbara and I went to Camp Brewster, which was a YWCA camp. I learned to dance from black girls who went to that camp when I did. And it was I went to camp when I was 5 years old, and I stayed for 3 months, and they had to chase me around to get me to come home. I adored it so much. And we went to camp every year. And then when JCC opened, I went to both camps. And then after a while, I just went to JCC. And then when I was in college, I think I was the program director. We grew up in camp and adored it.
I want to hear a little bit more about your sister.
Oh, my sister, she's fabulous. My sister, my sister is more like my mom in that she can sew, and she's just got more talent than I did. And that's just life is like, I guess. But she's terrific. And I looked after her. And I mean, one summer when she was at camp and I wasn't with her at that time because I was somewhere else, I couldn't sleep at night because she was a daredevil. I thought she'd walk on the railroad tracks, and not watch what was going on at camp, and I'm not there to watch over her. That bothered me very much because she was a daredevil and I was much more a minding, obedient child type person. My father used to think that I would probably grow up and, I don't know, get a master's in whatever, and Barbara wouldn't give her a chance, and she'd probably go 1 year to college and get married. Well, it turned out that I got married at 21 when Barbara wasn't married at 24. He thought she was going to be an old maid. And she was the one that got the master's in counseling at Columbia, and she was the one that did everything. She's a fabulous human being. She's a realtor, not anymore, well, kind of retired. And she writes skits in college. When she lived in Milwaukee, when she got married, she worked and made costumes for some groups and was all over the front page of the society section in Milwaukee. And she was just fun, very fun, good looking.
Where is she living now?
She lives in La Jolla.
Is she married?
Yes, she's married, and she had 2 boys. She lost her oldest son in 1990 when he was 35 years old. He dropped dead at the train station. He was the Mazone head for the eastern states, New York. They lived in Philadelphia at the time, and he was going to take the train to New York. And because of the halacha rules, there was no autopsy, but we're sure it's hard. It was hard. And he was a rabbi, and a fabulous human being. He touched many lives. And so she's been married 50 years, maybe 51, and she has 5 grandchildren. And her son is just like a young Daniel. Daniel was the one who died. And he now has got accepted to Berkeley Law School, so he's close to me, so I get to see him. He was at my house for break fast this year, and it was wonderful to have him.
And Marty?
Oh, Marty. Marty is got the greatest sense of humor ever, ever, ever. He's just amazing. I wrote when he went to college. I think it was I don't remember. You can tell, but I don't know. I filled out the application for him because I'd have said if you do, they won't accept you. They won't be able to read it. Nothing will work. So I filled out all of his stuff when he went to school, and he went to Nebraska 1 year. Then in between, he decided to get a master's in biochemistry. So he took a year out next year, and he did that. And then he went to, and then he finished. Then my Uncle Maury, who's my father's brother, said to him when he was going to, I don't remember what school he was applying to for med school. And Maury says, why don't you apply to the best? Apply to Johns Hopkins. So he did, and he got accepted. And he went there for his internship, and then he applied for his residency, and he did that there in Johns Hopkins. But when he was in school, he called home, and he wanted everybody in the family to have their cholesterol taken, because I think his was 600 or something, that they just discovered he was getting angina on the way walking up the hill to school. So it turned out my mother and my sister had very high cholesterol, and Marty did, and Dad's and I were not high. So he put everybody on the right medicine, and then he started, when Ken Cooper, who was the father of aerobics, came out with his book, my brother started with aerobics right away. And he absolutely, between high school, because he was a little guy when he was born, he used to lift weights in the basement, and so he built up his body. And then when aerobics came out, and he did that, and so that when he had a triple bypass early on. I mean, I can't remember how many years ago it was, because he's had 2 triple bypasses. And the doctors were amazed because the auxiliary or ancillary blood vessels had expanded from his running and what he was doing to make it work. And he's fine. He's just wonderful. He's a big exercise guy. He's still keeps up with all medicine. He calls us all the time and tells us, I want you to take this, this, and this. Barbara and me. Barbara doesn't do it, and I do it. Remember the obedient, the one on the ramp? We're still the same way. He said, just talking to your sister, it's like talking to the wall. And, my parents died young. And I think that made us much closer. My father died of heart, he had I'm sure he would have been alive if they were doing bypass surgery at the time of his heart condition when it first started. But anyway, my father died. My mother was found. My Uncle Billy called me and said, "Where's your mother?" 11 months later. "Where's your mom?" I said, this was on a Saturday afternoon. I said, "She's probably playing cards." Esther Horwich lived right at the end of the block. So I called over there, and they said, "No, she left. She went to walk home. She was going home." And we couldn't find her anywhere. So when Stan came home, I told him it was March, and it was winter and snowy out, and I told him to go and take a flashlight. And he went, and the door was locked from the inside, so you knew she was in the house. And he saw her dead he saw her not dead, he didn't know that yet, in the den on the couch. And so I called Dr. Weber, and we called the fire department. They broke the door down, and my mother had died that day. And in the Mixmaster was an applesauce cake for my daughter's bat mitzvah that she was making to freeze, because she was going to be bat mitzvah on April 16th, which would have been her 13th birthday. And since that time, first of all, my friends were wonderful, the way they came up, the Zapurskys, and cleaned up the house and did everything so fabulous for us. But since then, my sister and brother and I call each other all the time, keep in touch, we're there for each other. Each of us knows that the other one would go to hell for the other one. We are a very close family. And it's quite wonderful, quite wonderful.
Let's go back and talk a little bit about your high school years.
Oh, they were wonderful. I had a wonderful time in high school. I went to Central High School. I was a midterm baby, so I started high school in January rather than in June. And I had a great time. I was popular. I dated a lot. I was a news editor for the for the Central High Register. And I just had a great time. It was so much fun, and we'd go to the J after the end of school across the street. Everybody gather on the first floor, shoulder to shoulder, because it was really tight, and we just had a wonderful time. And on Friday nights, as I said, lots of people came to our house, and we would get together, on a Friday night, and it was terrific. It was a great time. I loved my teachers. I loved my classes. I loved my friends. It was terrific. I got good grades. It was really good. Finishing my Hebrew school thing, I went to Hebrew school through high school, graduated high school Hebrew. I think there was 3: Ruthie Kay, Harold Margolin, I think Arlene Cooper, but I'm not positive, and me were in the graduating class. We went through school together, and that was fun. I was also the second bat mitzvah in the city of Omaha. Ruthie Kay was the first. And I used to sing. Well, that's not high. Well, I used to do this through high school too. I taught Sunday school at Bethel. When I went to Hebrew school, we attended 3 times a week. I went to Sabbath school on Saturdays, and I said to Rabbi Goldstein, "I spend my life at the synagogue. What do I mean?" He said, "Can you think of a better place?" That was his answer to me. So I had no answer for that. I thought that was pretty good. And we were it was a wonderful time for all of us. We had a wonderful family life.
Now with your living in California, Omaha still holds a pretty good place in your heart.
Omaha is my hometown, not California. You can take me out of Omaha, but not the Omaha out of me, or however that saying goes. It's the truth. And I have a friend in California named Marilyn Weisberg, who was Marilyn Kaplan from Omaha. And when somebody asks her about somebody in Omaha, she said, "Oh, I'm not the person to ask. Call Jeannie," you know. And I can usually find out or know the answer to it.
Do you still have a lot of friends left here in Omaha?
Oh my God, yes. Oh yes. Most of my friends are in Omaha still. And I know what's going on in Omaha. I talk to my friend Sheila Rosen every single week. I pick up the phone, and this is what Barbara and Marty and I all do. Daddy used to tease us about this, because we pick up the phone and call long distance as if we owned 12 shares of stock or something. And yeah, I still have the same friends in Omaha. And I'm very close to them. I know what's going on.
Jeannie, can you dig down and tell me a couple memories of your father?
Oh, sure. There's tons. We used to get rides home with him. We'd go to the office if we were at school. I'd go down to the office to get a ride for him. And sometimes if I was downtown around lunchtime, I'd go to the office and say, "Dad, do you want to have lunch?" And he'd say, "Sure." And he was always, when you walked in the office, I don't care who was there, if it was one of his kids, it's like, I don't care if you're the President of the United States, you're saying, "This is my kid, they come first." And he'd say, "Let's go down, you want to go downstairs?" So we'd go downstairs to the Brandeis cafeteria and order our lunch, and he'd pay for it, and he'd give me put the change, he'd say, "breakage." I thought that was so dear, so adorable when he'd do that. And then another thing that he did, I would go to, another time I asked if he'd like to go to lunch, he said sure. So we went to the Fontanelle Hotel in their dining room. This is kind of classy. And it's kind of dark in there, and we're sitting in a booth, and he's got his arm around me, okay? And he's kissing me on the cheek. I said, "Daddy, everybody doesn't know that you're my father." You know? Cool it. Then when Stan and I got new furniture from raising the kids and stuff that was really a mess, and got new furniture, my dad came over to see it, because he just lived a few blocks, and he used to walk up after he got home from work. So he came up to see the furniture. He went through and he would question, what's that or the other. He wasn't sure he liked that. I said, "Daddy, you don't have to like everything I got." And he said to me, "But wouldn't you like it better if I did?" I thought, that stumped me. I mean, that was so adorable. Yes, you're right. I would like it better if you liked everything. Great, great guy. I am told that I'm giving this interview as kind of I don't know what it's for, but the last and best part is supposed to be about my children. And that's so easy. I love you both so much, and you've made my life so full, and I just want you to know how much I care and how much I want you guys to. All I told you, I think I told you, all I care about is that you take care of each other after I'm gone. You better do it. Just remember that. My kids are both adopted, and I chose them. They're just precious to me, very precious to me. And I want you guys to be happy. And I want you to, if you have to work on it, it's worth it. I adore my grandsons, just adore them. They bring me such joy. They're such good kids, and so sweet, and so good. When my youngest grandson, when he was 11, they were asked to write a profile on somebody, not their parents, and he wrote one to Grandma that I've got hanging in my bedroom. It is so precious, the way you describe me, the way you say about the good things about me, because she's old. She drives a car and does that, and she's old, and she exercises every day, and she's old. I love it. I just love it. I don't know. This has been a pleasure. I miss having all of my family around me all the time.